So there are 3 reasons to why living in New York City is different than anywhere else in the world. At least for me, someone who's 21, entrepreneurial, and trying to make the most out of my time here. And reason number 1 is you meet a ton of people, a ton of important people, and sometimes randomly. This was supposed to be a normal Tuesday morning, but it ended up being a little different. Good morning from New York City. Today I would say is a pretty average day in my life. There's a lot planned, but right now, before we get into anything, we're gonna do my favorite thing, my favorite way to start the mornings off in New York City. Let's go do it. So apparently there's this science that if your body sees sunlight in the morning, that it does something to your circadian rhythm or something. So that's the first thing I like to do in the morning here, is to get some sunlight. And there's no better way to start your New York City day than this. This view never gets old. Isn't that crazy? So I've purposely kept my mornings meetingless, just because I've realized that as a creative, as a, primarily short form creator, trying to be more long form, so subscribe please. The morning is when I'm the most creative. And if I put meetings in that time, then I don't use that energy to make the best content.
Yeah, well, glad we have had a chance to connect, and glad you had a couple minutes. I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you. This is...
Yeah, I ended up setting a meeting in my creative time. It's rare that I do this, but this morning I got connected to a Bloomberg reporter. I'm not gonna deny that. I mean, what if next week I'm on the front of Bloomberg? Okay, that's not gonna happen. I don't even know if this reporter will use that segment, but still, what is life?
And that's how I would say got my foundation as this type of person.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and it's interesting that, it was kind of like in the...
Long story short, I got connected to this reporter because I went to an event in New York City months ago. And one of the people I met there is friends with this reporter. And I guess today that reporter's friend recommended talking to me. Nuts. I've genuinely felt like I've met more people in the last 6 months since I moved to New York City than my entire adult life combined. Which bleeds into point number 2. You do meet a lot of people in New York City, but what makes New York City different than anywhere else is the type of people that you meet.
Which gets me to my next point. The third and potentially most important element that built the New York City that we know today is immigration. As this city became the industrial hub for making stuff for people around the world, a steady flow of immigrants started flowing into New York City, mainly from Europe at first. Some of them were fleeing war or oppression, starvation, and some were just looking for a new life, to take a risk, to try something new.
This is my doorman, Louis.
Hi.
How are you?
This morning.
I am filming. I have a question for you. What do you think makes New York City, living in New York City and different than anywhere else in the world?
I say the diversity of people.
And this is my favorite daily barista, Terrell.
Yeah.
What do you think makes living in New York City different than anywhere else in the world?
I would have to say it's the people.
Where I grew up around the Columbia University area. Having the university there made me see that there's different people from all parts of the world, and that opened my eyes to a lot of other things that I wouldn't have been subject to.
When I say New York is different, it's definitely because we love different. We got a rough kind of love, We'll sit there until you get out of our way, and then in the same breath we'll tell you be safe.
Awesome. Thank you.
But it's always love out here, always, and it's different. It's not like.
Well, thank you, sir.
In order to get it.
When I was living in the suburbs of Chicago and Bloomington, Indiana, most people I met would have similar experiences. They grew up in similar socioeconomic states, had similar childhoods, ate similar foods, studied similar things, did similar activities, and are all growing up doing similar work. Here in the city, though, you meet some interesting people. For example, meet Midas, who is my Tuesday afternoon coffee. What's going on? How are you? Just a reminder, we've never talked before, but got connected because of another mutual that both of us knew in the city. Again, it's like this giant web that just keeps growing and growing and growing. Midas is this incredible mind who is obsessed with creating apps since he was a child. And he's from, oh my God. Midas, I'm so sorry. I totally forgot where you grew up. Was it the Netherlands? Amsterdam? think so. Regardless though, he's also a boxer and he got into Stanford, someone you don't really meet on the streets of Indiana. His job today is building a social media app, and I decided to challenge him to see if he can explain what he does in 3 sentences.
I'm curious, in 3 sentences, for some reason you can only say 3, how would you explain what your app is?
Okay, Unfiltered is a social throwback app where you get a random throwback from your camera roll every day. And if you want to see random throwbacks from your friends' camera rolls, you need to send a swap request, which means you trade photos to see each other's random photos. I don't know if that was 3 sentences.
The rest of my day ended up being pretty normal. And normal for me means visiting Catch and Ice Cream at least once to see how everything is going. I mean, it's only been 20 days since we've opened. Then, of course, I had to make some videos, short form videos. And after that, one of my favorite things to do in all of New York City is to go down to Pier 25 and 26, usually during sunset because it's absolutely beautiful. And one of my closest friends in the city, Colt, decided to join me. All of this just leads to point number 3. New York City is the only city to where I feel like I'm living 30 hours in a day, not 24. Even as I'm just like editing this video, I'm realizing, wow, you end up just doing so much more in the day here than anywhere else. It's definitely not for everyone, but for where I'm at life, being 21 years old, moving in this fast-paced environment, going to random dinners, meeting random people, working, that's what I love to do. And I'm grateful that this city is where it all happens. I'll end this video off with this. If you can figure out how, spend your 20s in New York City. What a life it is.